Hello again, investors. I'm Quentin Florence, and welcome to DR Dialogue, where conviction drives change so your money can do better. Doug and I are so excited today to have our wonderful guest, Natalie Born, and we just think you guys are going to enjoy everything that she has to say today.
Yeah, welcome, Natalie, our first female guest. Honors all to
Awesome.
you. We're very, very excited to have a big time podcaster come to the Double Result Dialogue stage here. We truly believe that, better results in a better world are indeed possible. And Natalie is one who, through her writing, through her consulting, through her steps of courage, I know is going to inspire us all today with her incredible story. And so, Natalie, we just couldn't be more ready to just dive in and hear more from you. And the first unexpected question that every guest receives is, "Will you please tell us more about you and where the Lord has you on your walk, especially around the area of investing?"
Oh,
So,
awesome.
welcome, Natalie.
Absolutely. Doug and Quentin, thank you so much for having me. I'm Natalie Born. I'm the CEO of Innovation Meets Leadership. I am a keynote speaker, a consultant, an author, host of my very own podcast as well. So yeah, it's been a busy season of taking many steps and leaps of faith, and I'm excited to be here with you guys today.
Awesome, awesome. It's great to have you. And so I want to kind of jump in, Natalie. So I know you've led strategy, innovation, development, and businesses over, is it 18 countries? Is that
Yeah,
correct? Wow.
that's right.
So really all over the world. So to dive in, the first question we wanted to get to is what's one courageous investment of time, energy, resources that has helped shape your journey?
Sure. Well, in those early years for me, it was the decision to I had this affinity, this interest in international business, and so I took a leap back in the day. And it started out I applied for a position in project management, and we were doing outsourcing to Nevis in the West Indies, and then
Mhm.
also to India. And it was around that time that I actually went back to school for my MBA as well, with a concentration in international business. So I'm kind of working in this international side of the business, and then I'm studying international business. And I just really got a bug for being able to figure out how to launch products, ideas, companies. And then we worked on a bunch of mergers and acquisitions. So about after a year of that role, I moved into an international product development role. And at the time, my company was beginning to buy all these other companies overseas. So as soon as that company was purchased, I was the feet on the ground to help integrate that company over into our platform so that we could scale whatever solutions we wanted to scale. We could scale them to all the organizations we were acquiring at that time. At one time, instead of being on 15 different platforms, we wanted to have one seamless solution, one seamless way to roll everything out to every customer across the globe. And it was an incredible experience, just getting to, enjoy different cultures, understand, here I am, 20 something, sitting across from a founder telling them, hey, you've got 6 months to move off of your platform. And they're thinking, who are you and why are you telling me this? And so I had to learn very quickly how to build resilience, how to build relationships, and how to help people see a vision for a future that they didn't yet understand. It was an exciting time, but man, I don't miss that level of travel. So
Yeah, no, that does. It sounds exciting. And you like you said, you were in your 20s when you did that. So what do you think you learned most about yourself when you were doing that in your 20s?
yeah, I think it was courage. Like I think that's part of what makes me a great consultant is I have to get up to speed very quickly on anything I'm learning, whether I'm coming into someone's business and trying to really understand where all the pieces are so that I can help them build a different future, or, back in the day when I was coming into an organization and everything's in a different language and figuring out what are the patterns that exist. And then once I understood the patterns in that company, I realized these patterns applied across other companies as well. So I think what I learned is that I love a challenge, and it was very challenging, but I love being able to roll up my sleeves and say, at the end of the day, these are people. that want to make an impact, and this is their baby. It's something that they've been launching for years, and now you're telling them you've got 6 months to move off of your platform and onto ours. So I realized that holding their hand, explaining to them exactly what we were doing and why, and helping them be a part of the process, right? So it wasn't happening to them, but it was happening with them. It's such an important part of business, right? No matter what part of business we're in, being able to lead people in a way where they understand the journey they're on and why you're taking them there. That's vision, right? Vision is one of the most important things that we can learn as a leader.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And you can see, listeners, why Natalie is just so perfect here. Because in working with founders, I'm sure you faced a level of fear, right? A level of concern that change was in the midst. How do you, you know, we want to learn from others' mistakes so that we don't do it. So maybe share some mistakes and then maybe share some formulas or some tools that you've used to help people move from that place of fear into their faith.
Yeah. That is, I think, the biggest thing that we deal with every day as leaders is choosing fear over faith. And sometimes it's really easy to choose fear because it looks like our comfort zone, right? It looks like staying where we are and not launching out into the unknown. But over time, it's actually this fear that holds us back, stunts our growth. It prevents us from actually being able to move forward in any true and real capacity. And so the fear that we choose today actually becomes the thing that frays our future. It just does not allow us to be able to move forward. And so a lot of times, what I tell leaders is, where are you investing today? Because oftentimes we don't even know where we're investing. When I come into a mid-sized company, for example, let's say it's $1 billion company, and I say, let's look at where you're deploying all your resources. Let's really look at it, really understand it. And I say, okay, you have $100. Would you put it all there? Well, of course I wouldn't. Okay, well then why are we deploying so much of our time, energy, and capacity, our potential, our best leaders in an area that you wouldn't even invest in? And so sometimes it's the fear of change. It's the fear of actually changing something because it's the way we've always done it, which, by the way, that phrase is just a phrase that ultimately leads to our downfall. Not doing it in a way where we're actually looking and focusing on the future, we feel it helps us today, but it actually hurts our tomorrow because we're not able to deploy investment in the places where we actually need to be present. And so that is the conversation, right? So when I help leaders build out their strategy plans, a lot of what we look at is, okay, where do you want to be in 1, 3, and 5 years? And then let's back into how you're investing today. And what we realize is those things are disjointed and misaligned. That misalignment leads to a lack of potential within the organization. So when you align that, and you can align leaders and people and resources and talent and time to that plan, we find that people are able to be successful. However, that doesn't mean the plan won't change, right? As the terrain changes, sometimes that plan changes, right? It's not a fight till you get punched. So that's when we have to realize that, okay, something has to adjust here in order to make sure that we can be successful long term.
Yeah, I love that aspect of alignment that you were talking to because too often, one of the areas that Quentin and I deal with a lot is either people get too much in their head or they're too driven by their heart or their gut.
Yeah.
And what we encourage our listeners to do is understand their identity. What is your lane? What is your purpose? What is your why? Any thoughts around that and how you encourage that amidst this time of fear and change and getting too much information and maybe not enough?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've started using this instrument. I got certified in it last year called HBDI. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It's called Herman Brain Dominance Instrument. It really looks at like what are our dominant thinking preferences? So how do we prefer to think? So if we think differently, we're both going to come to a solution and think that our way is the right way. Always, right? But if we can understand that each person at the table is bringing a different element of their thinking process to the table, then we can actually be more successful in the long term. So for example, let me give you a quick overview of because it's very, very fast. It's easy actually to understand,
Sure.
which is why I love this tool.
We're always curious here.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
So the blue area is, we call it kind of the blue-brained person is your CFO. They are thinking return on investment, money. How are we going to spend that money? What are the numbers? They're precise, they're detailed, they know the numbers, right? That's your blue brain. Your green brain, I typically call them your project manager. They're asking the question, I love your big vision. That's great and all, but what are the steps 1 through 10 that's actually going to get us there? And don't skip step 3 because now I'm confused. You need to back up and explain it to me. How are we going to get where you're saying we're going to go? Your red brains are your more emotional people, right? They're the gut feelers. They're the ones that are looking at people's feelings and sensing things in the room, and they're making decisions based on how are people going to feel. And then lastly, you have your yellow brains, which are your big picture visionaries, right? They're like, in the future, we're going to do all these incredible things. And your green brain is saying, fantastic. How? How? Your blue brain is saying, what's the return on investment? Your red brain is saying, how is this going to impact people? And of course, your yellow brain is just thinking, but isn't this such a big and great vision? And so when I make decisions, I ask myself, do I have all 4 of those roles at the table? Because you have some people that are going off a gut feel. Why? Because typically, honestly, their gut is works for them because they are able to synthesize information fast. And they may not be able to explain to you how they got there, but it actually works for them. And so oftentimes we're like, show me the data. You've got to be a green brain because you're asking for the data or you're asking for the information, right? Or you're blue. But the yellow person synthesizes the world around them. I need everybody at the table in order to make a good decision because I'm missing out on some piece of the equation if I don't include them. And so I need that person to pull on me because I'm yellow and red. So I'm big picture thinker and I'm your relational person. But I know that in order to be successful, I have to get the numbers person to the table. I have to get the project management green driven person to the table in order for my plan to work. Oftentimes, the reason things don't work is because we either go it alone, we don't have that discernment that we need other people with us at the table. And so therefore, we launch out, maybe something doesn't work or fails. It's because we're missing a key part of the equation right there.
Yeah, I think that's so good. That's so good and so true. And when you look at individuals, particularly entrepreneurs, investors, high functioning, typically type A personalities like myself, we a lot of times feel kind of paralyzed by fear. We know we need numbers people. We know I love what you said. Like I have to bring everyone to the table to be success, but oftentimes I feel stuck. And I've looked at, I've read through your book and I've spoken to you a few times on this. What would you say to those of us that we feel stuck and we can't move forward, even though we kind of know everything we need to include? How do we get over that hump?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I created a framework just for this podcast, just for you guys, that I thought would be kind of fun.
Okay.
First female guest, and she's coming in
She has a
customized.
framework. I
I love
love
it.
it. I love it.
So, my book's called Set It on Fire. I thought we could kind of think about this from the fire framework, if you will. So
Yeah.
when we think about courageous investment, I think about a fire framework. So F is you have to focus on ROI, right? Like
Mhm.
every investment should have, should tie back to value creation. So we
Mhm.
should be asking ourselves, what's the financial return? What's the customer impact? And I'm going to highlight that one 3 times. And then what's the strategic advantage that this gives us in the marketplace? So here's something that happens all the time. People do not pull a plug early if the return on investment is not there.
Mhm.
Sometimes the market or the customer will signal to us that it's not working, it's not for them, and we just keep moving. That's called a slow moving train wreck. And we have to stop that in what we do. So we must focus on ROI, right? I call that setting up stage gates. And once you hit a stage gate, if you don't have the proof, you can't move to the next one. And the next level of funding does not release until we've ensured that you've hit that stage gate and what's required in that stage gate. So the first one is focus on ROI. I in fire is involve the customer. I'm working with several customers right now and I'm asking them, are you customer obsessed? Like we
Mhm.
can't innovate in a silo. You have to bring customers into your innovation process. We have to measure their urgency. We have to measure their interest, and we have to validate that they're actually willing to pay for the thing that we're building. And if they're not willing to pay for it, then we shouldn't be building it. And so often we get caught off on the CEO's incredible idea. It's really interesting, but man, there's no market for it. And so that has to be there. So we have to involve the customer. R is risk with balance. And so I believe in risk. I think that's a key part of innovation, but we have to diversify our portfolio, right? In my book, I talk about transformative, breakthrough, and disruptive innovation types. And we have to have all three in our portfolio in order to be successful. Not only building today, but then also building the future while we continue to downgrade, right? Those things that are holding us back or holding us down, we have to transform them so that we can move ahead. And then we have to allocate our resources so that we're funding not only today, but also tomorrow. And most organizations think way, way, way too much about today and they don't build a future for tomorrow. And
Mhm.
then the last one, E, is this: we have to empower people with frameworks. So innovation is actually freedom in a framework. Innovation is boundaries. It's not endless pools of money. It's not endless amounts of time. It's not, oh, go away and think about whatever you want. It's it's thinking about customer problems that we want to solve over and over again. We have to look for patterns and then we have to deploy resources towards those patterns in order to be successful. So we have to give team members our vision, our mission, our values, and then we have to give them a framework of stage gates to say, once you reach the stage gate and you validate these points, I'll release more funds for you to go build what you're building. But we're not just going to give you endless pools of money and hope that everything's going to work out.
That's so good. That's so good. So it's F is focus,
Yep.
I is involve,
Yep. Involve the
right?
customer.
All involve your customers. R is risk, and then E is empower
Yes.
within a framework.
Yes.
I know for myself and Doug, we've seen many people that empower well and those that do not. And I can tell you
Yeah.
the results kind of speak for themselves there. And so when you're implementing a plan, kind of like you just described with fire, as leaders, you probably are going to have to rethink your results.
Yes.
You said it so well. Many companies, many investors, when you place money into something, people are only thinking short term. They're
Yeah.
not thinking short versus long term. So, can you give us just some key performance indicators or things that you should monitor as you're kind of making this change to move towards this fire model?
Yeah. So a couple of things in innovation world that we think about, and sometimes people struggle with the word innovation. It feels like you
Mhm.
have all this money that you throw around and nobody really does anything, and you don't know what people's job titles are. So let's start using the word transformation because sometimes that's a little easier for us to swallow. Okay. So if we think
Totally.
about transforming a business, there's a lot of different things that we're going to look at. I mean, the first thing we're going to look at is what is the return on investment today? Like let's think about it this way. So let's think about an S curve. Oftentimes when we think about an S curve, there are, and you were to zoom into the top part of the S, there is this arc happening, right? If we invest money as the arc is moving up, we get more return on investment. If we invest money as the arc is moving down, now we're actually pouring good money into a bad thing. And
Mhm.
oftentimes leaders don't know where their S curve is. And so the deployment of resources without understanding that is actually extremely risky and reckless. So a lot of times what we want to do is, let's say we're looking at a portfolio of someone's products, services, what they offer. The first thing we want to do is say, where is this product at in the S curve? How do you know that? Is it flat? Is it declining? What's actually happening so that we can decide either, okay, we need to deploy a different set of resources, we need to deploy less resources, or maybe our model is shifting, our customer sentiment is shifting, and we don't understand that. So we need to find out what it's shifting to and transform that product, that offering, that platform to actually meet the new sentiment. And so
Mhm.
that's oftentimes when we're talking about, deploying resources or investing resources, when people don't understand the truth of the S curve, oftentimes we don't deploy resources in the right places. And so critical for that is to be able to talk to our customer, look at patterns, and understand how those patterns deployed actually will create either growth for our business and our organization or decline because we're deploying things in the wrong location.
Yeah, I so appreciate the couple points that you brought up in your last few responses here that for me, my personal identity that God has given me is that I'm a waymaker for the lost.
Wow.
And when you look at where people are in their lostness, oftentimes the point you are bringing up is a lot of people don't know where they're going.
Hmm.
And as a result, they're feeling lost, frustrated, all alone, fearful, all the things that we've really been talking about. But I think you brought up just such a valid point that oftentimes when you're lost, you don't understand where you are right now. So, how, if you don't know where you're starting from, are you going to go there? And in investing, the where you're going is always at a response to the marketplace. And so it never can have an absolute certainty, but having that ability to understand where you are today is such a valid activity because your near-term actions are going to be so responsive to where you are currently at,
Wow.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense, Doug. And it's interesting you say that because in my consulting practice for years, I've spent time helping leaders on the business side. What's your vision? What's your mission?
Right.
What's your values? And I've realized that that's trickled into the personal side of who they are. What's your why? Why do you exist? What's your purpose? Because sometimes unknowingly, when there's some dissonance, cognitive dissonance between who they are and where the business is going, and those things aren't clarified, they will actually self-destruct the business and self-destructing themselves.
Totally.
So I've
Totally.
realized that I've as much as I've addressed like the hey, let's go focus on strategy, I've had to spend some time pulling the car over with the leader saying, and now let's look at you as the leader because you as the leader have the ability to make a massive impact on what happens or doesn't happen in the business. And in the background, if you've got tapes playing that shouldn't be playing, if you have lies being spoken over you that
Yeah.
shouldn't be spoken, if you are living a life that's different than what you're telling everyone else, right? You're almost breaking your brain by lying to yourself. So you're
Right.
telling everyone, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. But behind the scenes, you're not living that way. It actually breaks your brain because your brain is having to lie to itself.
Yeah.
So I've realized to your point, Doug, as much as we're helping them with strategy, it's like there's this side of everyone that's like, if you don't show up really truly who you're called to be, it's going to impact everything you're trying to accomplish in your business.
That's so well said. We like to on DR Dialogue talk about our identity as our gift to the world.
Mm.
What are we bringing to the world?
Right.
And too often, as you said, fear arises when we mask it with too much detail or too much emotion, right? I mean, your zones that you were talking about come into, and the other elements of the zone aren't represented. You're not getting a fair and balanced. But the other absolute certainty that Quentin and I have when we're looking at investments is the way the wheels fall off is more than likely people. You,
Hmm.
you can do your research around it, but people is the variable that is you can never pay enough attention to. And I so appreciate, and that explains why you're such a successful consultant, in that you're looking at the identity of the individual as well as the holistic why and opportunity around you.
Yeah.
Hey, courageous investors. Thanks so much for being with us here today. What an amazing background Natalie shared with us. We are so excited to hear about her concepts on what it takes for you to operate in a fearless investment style as courageous investors. So we're going to continue this discussion with Natalie in our next episode. So join us then for DR Dialogue.